Tonight, a palpable sense of relief as the state moves towards a less restricted life.
I've announced today what is safe but will not undermine the sacrifice, the hard work, the pain, the amazing efforts that Victorians have put in.
Also tonight, the Cup is coming home. 2 Victorian teams to face off in the historic AFL decider at the Gabba. A landslide election win for New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. And Viva the Vixens. Melbourne wins its first Super Netball title after a thrilling grand final.
The one trophy that has eluded them is now theirs.
Hello and welcome to ABC News Sunday. I'm Tamara Oudyn. After 103 days in lockdown, metropolitan Melbourne is finally taking some long-awaited substantial steps towards opening up. New rules will come into force from midnight tonight. People will be able to venture further from their homes and mix more freely outdoors. Lockdown hairstyles will finally get some attention and golf and tennis a fair game. But retail and hospitality will have to wait a fortnight for their restrictions to be loosened, although there is a chance that could happen sooner if case numbers remain low. Just 2 new cases today and no deaths. But the cluster in Kilmore has grown after a staff member at a bakery there tested positive. State political reporter Bridget Rollison begins our coverage.
It's the day exhausted Victorians have long been waiting for.
Everyone right to go?
After months in lockdown, metropolitan Melbourne is opening up, mainly outdoors, and the bubble has grown, but it hasn't gone.
This thing hitches a ride, and the further you travel, the further you'll take it.
From midnight tonight, Melburnians will be able to travel further from home, with the 5-kilometre limit extending to 25 kilometres. Up to 10 people from 2 households will be able to gather outdoors, and there's no time limit on exercise or socialising. Hairdressers are among a select few services to open tomorrow. Up to 5 workers will be allowed to conduct outdoor home maintenance, and there'll be a full return of allied health services.
I've announced today what is safe but will not undermine the sacrifice, the hard work, the pain, the amazing efforts that Victorians have put in.
Some outdoor activities are returning, including tennis and golf, and skate parks will reopen. Outdoor pools will have a new maximum of 30 swimmers at a time, while up to 10 people will be allowed to attend real estate auctions.
Sold! Thank you very much.
But Melburnians will have to wait another 2 weeks for most businesses to reopen. Authorities are being cautious, with 15 mystery cases still in Melbourne.
We remain nervous, but I'm confident we're going in the right direction.
From November 1, the 4 reasons to leave home will be removed. Up to 2 people and their dependents will be able to visit your home once a day. Retail, beauty and personal services open, while the drinks will start to flow in hospitality, with 20 people allowed inside a venue and 50 outside.
If we enjoy these freedoms but do it in a COVID-safe way, then there is every chance that we are able to bring that 1st of November deadline forward.
There's also a 50-person limit for outdoor seated entertainment. Contact sport resumes for under 18s, non-contact sport for adults. And religious gatherings will get some relief, with 20 people allowed outdoors, 10 people for weddings and 20 people at funerals.
Melbourne's now entering its 16th week of our supposed 6-week Daniel Andrews lockdown. Today's announcement didn't go as far as it should. Frankly, small business has been given nothing out of today's announcement.
People in regional Victoria will be able to have home visits from tomorrow. The number of people allowed at restaurants, cafes and bars doubles. And regional libraries and toy libraries reopen with a maximum of 20 people allowed. Indoor non-contact activities such as dance classes will restart in regional Victoria from November 1. And the maximum number of people allowed at outdoor religious gatherings also increases.
There has been no message there at all for all the gymnasiums right across regional Victoria as to whether they'll be able to open as well into the future.
While Victorians have done their part by staying home for months, the Premier says he's confident everything's in place for authorities to hold up their end of the deal when it comes to contact tracing, testing and infection control. But while restrictions are easing, one thing that won't be changing anywhere anytime soon are masks. They're here to stay, despite the low numbers. Bridget Rollison, ABC News, Melbourne.
Some families in Melbourne are thrilled they'll be able to reunite for the first time in months. But for others, the ring of steel means a reunion is a way off yet. And while some workers go back tomorrow, retail and hospitality, as we just heard, won't open for a fortnight. Here's Margaret Paul.
Emily Coulter hasn't seen her brother since February.
We'll move from 5 kilometres to 25 kilometres.
Oh, good. Her brother lives 10 kilometres away and her grandma 20.
When I can see them, it'll just be fantastic.
She's also a manager at the pub in Diamond Creek, where she's looking forward to dusting off the tables.
It's going to be hard trying to get everyone in, but we'll do it as best as we can. There's the phone ringing now. There's the phone ring.
At the playground, some people were lapping up the news.
Hairdressers. The pool. The beach. Yeah. See our family.
It's just about being able to get outside that 5K ring.
Others were hoping to go even further than the new limit.
We would love to travel within Australia, within Victoria, and we can't see ourselves doing any of that in the short term.
But Melbourne's newfound freedoms don't suit everyone.
If you're this far out, like I am now in Bulletin, well then it's no use to me at all. So that's why my children like me to come and live closer to the city.
For some families, weddings will be back on, with double the number of people allowed to attend.
From 5 to 10, it means the couples can have both set of parents, which is an incredible difference.
There'll be different hairstyles around Melbourne too. This barbershop is already booked out for the next 2 weeks.
I think it'll be really good for a lot of guys' mental health. That it'll be probably one of the first times in the whole lockdown they'll actually get to sit down and talk about their experience over the last 6 weeks or 8. Yeah, I've kind of lost track of how many weeks it's been.
After more than 10 weeks off, Craig Healy's renovation business is still 2 weeks from resuming.
Yeah, look, it's been really, really frustrating based on the fact that we've been set up for years with safety, OH&S laws. We're really, really well run anyway. We're experts in managing risk as it stands, so it's been a really frustrating time.
Retail businesses are frustrated too.
It's another 2 weeks before any substantial change for either hospitality or retail operators, and we think that's going to be too long. We think they've forgotten.
There's a glimmer of hope though. If the numbers stay low this week, the Premier could move that date forward. And businesses are calling on all Victorians to do everything they can to make that happen so they can open sooner. Margaret Paul, ABC News, Melbourne.
Locally, this year's AFL Grand Final celebrations will also be curtailed by lockdown restrictions. For the first time in 9 years, we have 2 Victorian teams in it. Richmond will take on Geelong, but in Brisbane at night. And in another blow to tradition, Victorians can forget about backyard barbecues and the halftime kick-to-kick.
It was socially distanced supporting in Geelong last night, but it didn't dampen the enthusiasm for Cats fans. It will be a strange grand final week for Victoria. No training, no grand final parade. The Geelong City Council won't even be able to put up a big screen for the big game.
In any normal period, we would look at a number of different celebrations throughout the city. We're really encouraging hospitality businesses to get behind, small gatherings.
Even with today's easing of COVID-19 restrictions for regional Victoria, only a lucky few will be able to get a seat at the bar.
We've currently got about 205 on a waiting list for Saturday. So, look, when Geelong's in the grand final, it just really boosts the economy in Geelong. It gets the town really vibrant and buzzing. But really, with a lot of places unable to open, it's a real disappointment.
We'll have to stay at home and sit in front of the TV what do you do?
Watching the game at the pub is just a dream for fans in the Tigers' heartland.
I'm going to be sitting at my house in front of the TV with a couple of beers and hopefully celebrating by the end of it.
For many, the grand final is a social highlight of the year, and the Premier is pleading for people to forgo the traditional barbecue and just watch the game at home. That's turned the grand final into a political football.
I'm appealing to people, as significant as the day is, it's got to be different. It has got to be different.
This is going to be probably the worst grand final Victorians have ever seen.
A strange end to a strange season, but some things never change.
Go Cats!
Stephen Schubert, ABC News, Geelong.
The much-lauded travel bubble with New Zealand appears to have burst, with a number of states saying they've been blindsided by the arrival of Kiwis at their airports. The travel zone is in place with New South Wales and the Northern Territory, but after arriving, they've moved on to other states, including Victoria and Western Australia. Anna Henderson reports.
Just days ago, New Zealanders were touching down in Sydney and Darwin, celebrating the first ditch dash in a pandemic bubble. It's what happened after some went through customs that's now spoiling the welcome. 23 went west and were met by a hard border, sent straight to quarantine.
Managing people from overseas coming into the state is difficult. We would like further assistance from the Commonwealth.
The Victorian government was originally trying to track down 17 Kiwis who transited to that state.
You know how yesterday I said there were 17? Turned out there's 55 that have turned up from New Zealand. So this is gold standard, apparently, according to the federal government.
The Premier has written to the Prime Minister, urgently requesting action to prohibit onward travel.
The risks of a person travelling into Sydney from New Zealand and carrying the virus are incredibly low, because community transmission has been precisely zero.
5 have turned up in Tasmania and gone directly into quarantine, but they pre-registered. Federal authorities maintain all states were informed about the possibility at a meeting last week.
I think Alan Tudge and the federal government need to take responsibility for our national borders.
This has become a messy political disagreement, and travellers are as confused as some politicians about the parameters of this trans-Tasman travel deal. With a fortnight of federal parliamentary sittings ahead and more planes arriving, calls for better oversight of these arrangements are in full flight. Anna Henderson, ABC News, Canberra.
Labor will govern for 4 more years in the ACT after a resounding victory in yesterday's election. It's the 6th consecutive win for the Labor Party in Canberra, extending their reign to 23 years in government. The party pitched itself as a steady hand during uncertain times, while the Canberra Liberals campaigned on the cost of living.
In this most challenging of years, Canberrans have turned to a strong and experienced government. And in 2020, Canberrans have voted to return a Labor government.
Labor will once again rely on the support of the Greens to form government. The Green vote surged, with the party picking up between 4 and 6 seats in the ACT's 25-seat assembly. Members of Australia's Rwandan community fear relatives are being murdered in their former homeland as the country's regime moves to silence international critics. The ABC can also reveal a Melbourne father has been stranded in the African nation for over a year after having his Australian passport seized. Here's Defence correspondent Andrew Green.
A suburban Aussie backyard is a long way from Rwanda and the genocide this father escaped 3 decades ago. Despite being far from his homeland, Noel Zihabamwe still fears the reach of its current regime.
Australians of Rwandan origin are living in a fear. This is not recent. Been going on for many years.
Last year, the community leader reported to police violent threats made by a former Rwandan diplomat in Australia. Not long after, his brothers in Rwanda disappeared.
I'm very well informed that they've been abducted because of me.
Noel says his refusal to become a foreign agent means his siblings have not been seen for more than a year.
I doubt that they're still alive.
Numerous critics of President Paul Kagame face similar intimidation. The ABC can reveal a Melbourne father who flew to the capital, Kigali, early last year has been unable to return home after authorities there seized his Australian passport. And this video, recently leaked from inside Rwanda's High Commission in London, appears to show community members being forced to swear allegiance to the regime.
People from Rwanda, not just in Australia, but even in other countries, have been followed by their government. Some of them have been abducted, some have been murdered.
The Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade says it's raised concerns with the Rwandan government about threats made in Australia. And in the past week, this country's domestic intelligence agency, ASIO, has warned many ethnic communities here of facing harassment and intimidation from foreign powers. Rwanda's government has not responded to the ABC's request for comment. Andrew Green, ABC News, Canberra.
You're watching ABC News Sunday. Still to come tonight. 20 years on from the Sydney Paralympics, we look back at what remains Australia's most successful games.
I'm Naz Campanella, and in 2000 I was just a child and cheered on our Paralympians. Tonight we hear from some of those superstars.
Gold medal to Australia!
We were on the front page and the back page of the paper with the headline news. It was so exciting to be Australian. I was so proud.
Well, even Jacinda Ardern was shocked by her party's landslide victory in New Zealand's election. The Prime Minister has declared it a vote of confidence in her government's response to the pandemic. The Labor Party will govern with an outright majority, the first time that's happened since proportional voting was introduced.
Getting down to business on the morning after a night to remember. Labour's best result in half a century.
It did exceed my expectations.
New Zealand's first man also taken aback by the scale of the victory.
I was like, well, that'll come down. That's going to come down. That can't hold.
Congratulations coming in from far and near.
I have had a few lovely messages. Scott Morrison was very quick off the bat last night, but also reminded me of our wager today on the rugby.
The whole world has been looking at Jacinda Ardern and saying, I wish we had a bit more of that.
This was the makeup of the Parliament in the last election. As it stands now, Labour has gained 18 more seats, while the opposition National Party has lost 21. The Greens and Free Market Act Party pick up 10 apiece. Jacinda Ardern could go it alone, but may still seek a coalition partner.
What is clear is that we do have that mandate to press ahead and form government, but at the same time I have worked to build consensus over the past.
The National Party left reeling from its disastrous result, though leader Judith Collins won't be crushed.
I take absolute personal responsibility for working every single day and night.
The pressure is now on for the PM to open the country back up for business. But news that a port worker has tested positive for COVID-19 could again delay that.
We know the border is an area of risk for more cases of this virus to emerge.
Jacinda Ardern has won the election, and it looks like her wager with Scott Morrison. Now it's time to, in her words, crack on.
Let's keep moving!
Barbara Miller, ABC News.
The deep divides in America have again been on display, this time at women's marches held just weeks before the election. Thousands of mostly young women have rallied against the president and his Supreme Court pick, Amy Coney Barrett. But they've clashed with Donald Trump's supporters over the issue of abortion. From Washington, Chief Foreign Correspondent Philip Williams reports.
This was a march to fit the times. In the past, over 1 million had joined together in Washington, but this time women from 30 states with high rates of coronavirus were told not to come. For the rest, it was masks and social distancing, and a message outside the Supreme Court that Donald Trump's pick to replace progressive Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg should not join the bench.
We want a woman who's supportive of other women, not just in her face, but in her policies.
But supporters of Ruth Bader Ginsburg did not hold court alone. Pro-life and Trump supporters were also there, selling a very different message, fully behind the nomination of Judge Amy Coney Barrett.
She's with me! ACB!
At times, disagreement turned to abuse. Calm, considered debate, nowhere to be seen.
The only division that I've been seeing is from the left side, to be honest. My friend got punched in the face from one of them because they did not agree with her Trump sign.
This is where the two sides meet. It's passionate, it's argued at sometimes at an ugly level, but neither side is listening to the other, and that, in a sense, is where America is right now.
The president continued his barnstorming election rallies, trying to make up for lost time when he was sick with coronavirus, something he continues to assert is being conquered.
You got to open your state up. You got to open it up. You got to open it up, get back to school.
Donald Trump certainly appears to have recovered. But the pandemic is worsening across the country. The latest daily figure now tops 70,000 new cases. 10 states recorded their highest ever daily toll, and on average, more than 700 Americans are dying every day. Philip Williams, ABC News, Washington.
As Donald Trump has returned to the campaign trail over the past week, he's tried to put law and order front of mind for voters. At rallies and in speeches, he's emphasised his tough stance, and the role of police across the country remains controversial. Violent crime is a big problem for cities like Baltimore, which is experimenting with community policing to try to help address it. North America correspondent Catherine Diss travelled to the city and met the people pushing for change.
I'm not leaving until my daughter turns 18.
These former felons are on the front line of violence in one of America's most dangerous cities. Relying on tip-offs and intel from the streets, the so-called violence interrupters work to prevent crime without calling police.
I just made sure that this guy was protected, the guys down there was protected, and the girl was protected.
Dante Barksdale leads the team. He's the nephew of Nathan Bodie Barksdale, the drug kingpin who inspired hit series The Wire.
We identify and detect. What we do is we try to interrupt it and intervene, right? And then that next step is to change behaviours and norms.
It's the kind of shift to policing activists called for after Freddie Gray died here in police custody 5 years ago. Redirect police funding into social programs rather than solely focus on reforming police.
Baltimore implemented aggressive changes to policing after the death of Freddie Gray in 2015, but so far it's failed to reduce the homicide rate. Since then, more than 300 people have died in the city each year.
Funding for law enforcement continued to increase, far outstripping spending on social programs.
This neighborhood represents a perfect storm of negative indicators that make this a very challenging place for Baltimore residents.
Tara Huffman is a local pastor. She also works in juvenile justice.
Free food. Pull right up in line, sir.
We still, unfortunately, have a city and even a state that is still putting too much investment into police, courts, corrections, to the detriment of systems that are designed to support families.
We done seen lives transform. The guys that we're actually hiring, we changing their lives. We just don't have the funding that we need, and we don't have the manpower.
In the neighbourhoods they patrol, violent crime has dropped dramatically. But the partisan battles over the right way forward will help define this election and communities for decades to come. Catherine Diss, ABC News, Baltimore.
Now to tonight's special report. This week marks 20 years since the Sydney Paralympic Games. Over 11 days, more than 1 million spectators cheered on the Australian team, competing across 18 sports. For the first time, Australia topped the medal tally, winning 149 medals. It's a performance yet to be repeated. In Athens, we won 101 medals and finished in 5th place, and that's where we've stayed. So what was it that inspired our athletes to smash records and exceed all expectations in Sydney? Here's Disability Affairs reporter Naz Campanella.
Defending Paralympic champion, representing Australia, Louise Savage.
Sydney 2000, yeah, obviously one of the highlights of my career and my life, I could say. It's a very, very special time.
And away they go.
I felt a lot of pressure, probably more from myself, but then the general public, I think, wanted me to win just as much as I did.
Louise Savage comes out in lane 3.
I think it really did show what people with a disability can do, and it was a fantastic celebration.
Gold medal to Australia. Savage has won.
14 seconds left.
20 years have passed, but for Louise Savage, the memories are vivid. Now coaching the next generation of track superstars, she can reminisce about her key role in the Sydney Games.
It was a massive secret that I was actually going to light the cauldron, and I'll never forget, you know, my family up in the stands. They had no clue either, so it was a big surprise for them too. So it was fantastic just to have that massive honour.
In Perth, swimmer Tracy Cross, who is blind, remembers the opening ceremony. With her then guide dog Rosie, she had the daunting task of reciting the athlete's oath.
Because I knew I would not be able to read the braille with my hands on the night because I'd be holding the flag, I practiced every day reading the braille because I was so nervous I was going to forget the words, and I really did not want to do that standing up in front of 110,000 people.
For the glory of sport and the honour of our teams.
Swimmer Siobhan Payton was the golden girl of the Games, winning the most medals of any athlete.
And Payton goes in and wins. What a brilliant performance by the Australian in 32.56. New world record again.
It was wonderful that I was number 1. I would have been still smiling if I was number 2 or 3.
The Canberra woman lives with an intellectual disability. She was 17 years old when she won 6 gold medals.
It was ecstatic. It was great that I did this. I just hunkered down, did my job and did the best I did on the day.
Siobhan Payton of Australia will win the gold medal. And
My memory of the Sydney Paralympics was here at the Aquatic Centre. I was 12 years old and an aspiring swimmer. The experience was overwhelming. As a blind child, just feeling that energy and the sound of the crowd. I look back now and I realise I witnessed a really important moment, not just for the athletes, but also for all people with disability.
He's bounding out down the back straight. Tim Matthews for Australia.
There's no doubt the Sydney Paralympic Games was a watershed moment for the whole movement around the world.
Victorian Tim Matthews is now coaching London Paralympic star Kelly Cartwright for a Tokyo comeback.
Yes.
At the Sydney Games, Matthews won 2 gold on the track.
It was an awesome team to be a part of.
If anyone can judge how special Sydney was, it's Dani Datoro. Next year's Tokyo Games will be her 7th Paralympics. She now competes in table tennis. In 2000, she represented Australia in wheelchair tennis.
It was like this beautiful moment where the whole country came together to celebrate everyone. There's always been a real edge to disability sport, is that there is a tokenistic aspect to it. And I think the Games, particularly in Sydney and London, show that there's real professionalism here.
Yeah, so Datoro will be joined on the plane to Tokyo by Madison Di Rosario. A world record holder in the 800 metres, she has 3 silver Paralympic medals from Beijing and Rio.
I think I'm so lucky to have someone in my corner who, all of the emotions that come with racing and training and the extreme kind of successes and failures, she's experienced all of it.
The biggest highlight for me now and the biggest buzz is being part of someone else's journey.
Savage is going to win.
It's so rewarding. I couldn't think of anything better to do.
The Melbourne Vixens have claimed their first Super Netball title, beating the West Coast Fever in a neck-and-neck decider in Brisbane. Shita Mwaikamwenda was named MVP as the Vixens farewelled 2 veterans in style.
Doing it for Victoria had been the Melbourne Vixens' catch cry in the build-up to the decider. But to deliver some silverware, they would need to get past the high-scoring West Coast Fever. The early bounce went the Fever's way.
Quick offload to Charles off the back of her head.
Janelle Fowler quickly proved a handful for the Vixens as the Fever took a one-goal quarter-time lead.
A good defensive structure here from the Vixens. They've picked up a bit of space, but the Fever goes straight over the top.
Melbourne's goal attack Caitlin Thwaites was playing for the final time and was intent on making it count. The Vixens lifting in the second term.
They just saw that Kate Maloney was in the pocket. That was unbelievable. She flew through the air, Kate Eddy.
It was enough for the Fever to call a timeout.
Defensively, I think we can all up it. Got to go tighter on your own.
Maya Kumwenda was doing all the damage as the Vixens started to take control of the match.
Kumwenda, that is what is so good about her.
The Fever needed inspiration and Fowler delivered on the stroke of half-time.
Look at the celebration from Janelle Fowler. Oh my goodness.
The Vixens made a change in the third term, bringing on Tegan Phillip for her final appearance as a shooter, as they again threatened to take control.
So a nice little run here for the Melbourne Vixens.
Courtney Bruce has struggled against Kumwenda, but suddenly got on top, winning crucial contests to lift her side. The Fever had a chance to take the lead with a minute on the clock, but Alex T. Neild couldn't make it count. The Vixens running down the clock to claim a thrilling 2-goal win.
Right down to the wire, and I just had such faith that we played out all of those scenarios and we knew exactly what to do, and yeah, I'm just so proud to be a part of this club.
The Vixens sending out its retiring greats Thwaites and Phillip in the best possible way. Tom Wildey, ABC News.
One of the AFL's greatest players, Gary Ablett, will play his final game in the grand final. Ablett's Geelong side ended Brisbane's hopes of a home decider with a 40-point victory at the Gabba.
After 19 years, one of the greatest AFL careers will come to an end on its grandest stage.
So that's it. It's Geelong and Richmond at the Gabba.
It's obviously a great feeling. I mean, that's why we play the game, is to play in grand finals.
Even at 36, Ablett still played an important role as the Cats dominated the first quarter everywhere but the scoreboard. The Lions had moments of brilliance and cut the half-time deficit to 5 points.
It might go all the way! It does! What a goal!
The Cats broke away in the third quarter, albeit with some controversy thrown in.
Watch this! Oh boy! Goodness gracious me!
However, there was no doubt over his next.
Ablett from 55. Ablett has kicked the second third quarter goal.
An influential performance, but not enough to reconsider retirement.
No second thoughts. The game doesn't get easier, and I think for me over the last couple of years, my body hasn't been able to do, what I could do in my younger years.
The Cats sealed the result halfway through the final quarter.
Cats by 23.
Securing a first grand final for Patrick Dangerfield and the first all-Victorian decider in 9 years. Some feat, seeing there hasn't been a game in the state for 3 months. For the Lions and their fans, there'll be no Gabba grand final.
Once in a lifetime opportunity, but it's great fun to watch.
Really disappointing. On a scale of 1 to 10, like a 9.5.
But Brisbane is still a young team on the rise.
We've made progress. I mean, we're sad tonight and we're hurting tonight, but you've got to be realistic about these things. Success doesn't happen overnight.
Their time will come, but this week is about the last performance from the Little Master. Peter Lusted, ABC News.
There's no red carpet or black tie event for this year's Brownlow medal, but like the season that's been full of contingencies due to COVID-19, the AFL is still celebrating the league's best and fairest. The vote count is just getting underway. Reporter Brittany Klein is at the Gabba.
Well, in a sign of these COVID times, Brownlow medal favourite Lachie Neale is here at the Gabba while the official tally is being revealed an hour south at Carrara Stadium on the Gold Coast. In a season of first, the league's best and fairest, this year is a virtual event. It's also bucking tradition, being held tonight instead of the Monday before the AFL Grand Final. Brisbane's Lachie Neale is the clear favourite to take home the game's highest individual honour. It'd mean a clean sweep of the AFL's individual accolades this year for Brisbane's Lachie Neale after he took home the Lee Matthews Trophy and the Coach's MVP award last month. He admits it's bittersweet, though, after last night's loss to Geelong.
It was disappointing. Felt like we didn't play our best footy at all, and full credit to Geelong. I thought they played a great game. So I've sort of dealt with that last year and know what it brings, but definitely no speech prepared. I'd feel like a bit of a goose walking up there with a bit of paper.
In the past, winners have polled an average of 32 votes, but with the AFL playing just 17 games this year rather than 22, it's likely the winner of this year's Charlie will do so with a lower total. Reigning Brownlow medalist Nat Fyfe will be part of the virtual ceremony in Perth. In fact, due to the COVID restrictions, 80 players are taking part at 6 venues across the country.
Holden driver Shane Van Gisbergen has won his first Bathurst 1000 in a tight finish at Mount Panorama. Van Gisbergen and co-driver Garth Tander held the lead for most of the race, which was the end of an era for Holden at Bathurst.
From second on the grid, defending champion Scott McLaughlin was blistering from the get-go.
Great start by McLaughlin.
The Mustang kept flying before coming into pit. It was an early exit for veterans Jamie Whincup and Craig Lowndes. Whincup crunched the concrete on the treacherous turn 3.
Oh, no, he doesn't! Whincup has made a massive mistake. They're out.
This place here, you got to have respect for it. If it doesn't, it bites you, and we've all made mistakes here.
The carnage kept coming. Debutant Jordan Boys sent out the second safety car.
And this is
then the rain came down.
Straight away, so it's a reminder to be very cautious.
But Shane Van Gisbergen relished the conditions.
Have a look at this down the inside. Van Gisbergen does it.
Giving Holden its first lead of the day. His 888 team held a narrow lead for more than 50 laps.
Got a beautiful rhythm and flow going with that car at the moment, hasn't he?
Having dropped down to 16th, championship leader McLaughlin was itching to regain places.
And to get himself back into contention.
A classic Ford versus Holden battle ensued as Van Gisbergen and Cameron Waters ticked off their 7th pit stop.
There is nothing between them now for the final stint of the race.
The final lap saw another 3 casualties.
Here we go, car at the end. Can you believe it? At the same time, bang.
But the front of the pack persisted.
Shane Van Gisbergen has got control of this motor race.
The New Zealander crowned King of the Mountain for the first time.
And Shane Van Gisbergen takes victory at Mount Panorama.
Team did a faultless job. Car got better all weekend, so thanks to my guys. We had a great car and great way to send out Holden.
Cameron Waters and Chaz Mostert rounded out the podium. A Holden victory, a fitting farewell for the company's final crack at the great race. Ford's Scott McLaughlin finished 5th to secure the overall championship. Chloe Hart, ABC News.
To the weather now, and the south and east of the state saw some overnight showers with only the Mallee and Northern Plains staying dry. Mount Hotham got the best soaking with 39.2 millimetres. Today it was mostly sunny across the north and cloudy across the south. Daytime temperatures were a few degrees below the October average. Albury-Wodonga recorded the state's top of 21. Here in Melbourne, we hit our high of 15.2 at around 3 o'clock this afternoon. Outside now, it's 13. Interstate today, Darwin and Sydney each had a storm or two. It was overcast in Hobart and mostly sunny in Brisbane, Perth and Adelaide. The satellite images showing clouds stretching from southwest WA to the Northern Territory and from the centre to New South Wales. A weak front will cross southern Victoria tonight and early tomorrow with a high to follow later through into Tuesday. Showers and storms are expected tomorrow in parts of New South Wales, WA and the Territory, and there'll also be showers in Queensland, Tasmania and South Australia. For the capital cities, sunny in Perth, mostly sunny in Adelaide, grey in Hobart tomorrow. Back home, patchy fog will linger in the morning with light showers on and south of the ranges, mostly clearing in the west in the afternoon. It'll be cool and mostly cloudy over the south, warmer and partly cloudy in the north, and there'll be isolated showers in Gippsland. On the bays, 10 knot west to southwesterlies will tend south to southwesterly at around 15 knots in the middle of the day, waves to a metre. Monday in Melbourne will be partly cloudy with the chance of light morning and afternoon showers and a top of 16 and down to 9 tonight. Looking ahead, mostly sunny on Tuesday and 18 and again on Wednesday. Some gaps in the clouds on Thursday. Just a recap of the major news from today. The Premier has announced changes to the state's COVID restrictions. Some will take effect from midnight tonight. In Melbourne, time limits on leaving home will be removed. The 5-kilometre travel rule will be extended to 25 kilometres. Outdoor gatherings of up to 10 people from 2 households will be allowed, and hairdressers will reopen. But the DHHS has announced tonight that tomorrow's changes to indoor dining rules in regional Victorian restaurants and cafes will not apply to Greater Shepparton because of the testing that's going on there, and that is expected to last all through the week. And that's it from the news team for now. I'll be back tomorrow night from 7 o'clock. Bye for now.
Next on